I attempted to sew every day for a month. Not to make as many things as possible, but to finish as many things as possible. Tackle my mending pile, abandoned projects, but also some fun sewing projects that I've been meaning to do for a while. So slow sewing, quality over quantity, and simply appreciate the joy of making. The reason? To get back into my creative flow. After launching my Jigsaw pants sewing pattern, I needed a bit of a break from socials and creating. After giving my mind and body some rest, inspiration and creative ideas started to overflow my brain again. But the switch from inspiration and ideation to action and execution was still nowhere to be found by the end of May. Also overflowing, my work in progress projects drawer. Full of garments in need of repair, some abandoned projects, and I had this huge pile of garments in need of a press. I love ironing while sewing, and I hate ironing after laundry. So I kicked off June by first making a dent in that pile. Gotta make room for a month of creative endeavors. The goal? Sew for an hour every day for an entire month. But actually this is day 2 already, because I spent the 1st of June at our campsite. I finished this shirt by hand, which I made for my mom, which is the Townsend shirt sewing pattern by Elbe Textiles. And back to day 2, still ironing over there. It was a lot. Spent about 2 hours and then left the rest for another day. Because I wanted to treat that 1 hour a day goal not only as a minimum, but also as a maximum. I'll get into the why behind that later on. Let's first go through some other rules I set myself. The 1 hour isn't exclusively for sewing. It can also include prep work, like ironing, cutting, etc. Because all of these steps have their own purpose and value in the process of sewing. They deserve to get proper attention, instead of being rushed through just to get to the step of sewing as fast as possible. Slow sewing and enjoying the process. And if I'm not able to do my 1 hour of sewing on any given day because I'm sick, not at home, or any other valid reason, that's okay. Tomorrow is another day, or the day after. Because already on day 3 and 4, I was in too much pain to do any sewing, so I only ended up knitting a little bit. This is my current knitting project. Have been doing some knitting the last few days because I wasn't feeling well, and I figured, well, I want to do something. So I ended up doing a little bit more knitting, which was quite nice. It's the 5th of June, and we are back to doing some sewing today. Small interruption. If you're thinking June, yes. I filmed all of these days of sewing throughout June, but I had so much footage that I just needed a few weeks to edit and turn it into a coherent story. So it's been a minute, but I hope it's still fun to watch. I've set my 1 hour timer and let's see what we got. These are 2 zero waste shirts. A sewing pattern, a zero waste sewing pattern by Birgitta Helmersson. I also finished the inside, all with French jeans, nice and clean finish. Very nice shirt. I definitely need to iron these again. This white one, it's almost done. I literally only have the facing left to do, the bottom placket, buttons to be added, and then it's completely done. I should just finish it. It shouldn't be too much work. So that's the first one. I also, at the same time, started a second one in this check cotton poplin. I cut a separate facing for the inside instead of the regular fold over facing because I didn't have enough fabric. Did the same for the sleeves, and again, French seams over here. But there are some things here that I need to unpick and redo, which is why I stopped working on this. Where the facing is top stitch down, tension is completely off. The top thread is just laying on top of the fabric. Just pull that top thread out. There's no need to do any seam ripping. You can literally just pull it out like that, all the way out in one motion. And then we can also pull the back in one go. And I really tried to pay attention to like matching the checkers along the seam. Worked out pretty well here on the side seam. At the armhole seams, with a little bit of fraying, which isn't the biggest problem, but cut this with 1.25 centimeter seam allowance. That's exactly half of one of these checkers to ensure that I could do pattern matching everywhere. I forgot that I had to sew at 1.25, sewed at 1 centimeter. Whereas the front, it's the same color over here. When you continue along the shoulder seam. Here in the back, it's the other color. I want to redo this, so I'm gonna unpick the second line of stitching from this French seam and stitch it just a tiny little bit deeper. So that's the plan. Got some unpicking to do. I am gonna start with the white one, Gonna heat up my iron while I'm stitching this one. Then I can give it a good press and then we'll see how far we get. I didn't put my bobbin in correctly. I'm guessing today I'm not gonna get as far as I hoped. All right, timer's up. I have only done seam ripping and preparational work for tomorrow, basically. On the white one, I have added my 3 buttonholes. So all that's left to do now, tuck away all of these loose threads and add my buttons to the other side. I ended up going a little bit over 1.5 hours today because I spent quite a lot of time setting up camera angles, talking to the camera, explaining what I'm doing. So I gave myself that extra half an hour and this is where I'm gonna leave off. I'll see you tomorrow. I finished the top by hand the day after by adding the buttons and tucking all loose threads away. The next day, gave it a good press and tried it on. I really like short sleeves with a wide and boxy fit, but the cut of this shirt in this specific size resulted in some pretty intense diagonal drag lines on me. They're not restricting, but I'm not really sure yet about the look. But I do really like the overall cut of the shirt, and I'm hopeful that the fabric may soften up over time. Let's see. I decided to use my hour of that day by tackling the rest of my fresh laundry needing to be ironed pile. Then I managed to break my sleeve ironing board and my dress form in less than 5 minutes. Fixed them both, steamed this collar back in shape, and briefly tried it on to compare the fit with the new top, as they are both zero-waist boxy cropped shirts. And continued ironing. 3 more pairs of pants and 2 fabrics that I pre-washed recently. It is another day. It is the 8th of June and I just set a timer for half an hour because I've already been doing some more ironing and I did a little bit more work yesterday and I'm gonna spend half an hour on this top. So I'm gonna redo these. The machine is still set on white thread, so that should go quick. Sleeves are looking much better. The checkers are matching pretty well here in the front, and in the back they're just a tiny bit off here in some spots, but I can't be bothered. Now it is time to add the back neck facing over here. Afterwards it's time for the neck facing. 6 minutes left. I spent about 10 minutes sewing these and then another 10 minutes pressing everything. I'm not going to be able to finish all of this, but let's just do the back neck facing first and then see if we have any time left. Very optimistic, but no. Alright, it's week 2 and Monday was a national holiday, so me and my partner spent the day at our campsite. For context, we have a tiny old caravan at a seasonal spot on a campsite near us, where we spend most of our weekends in spring and summer. Pretty much all of our stuff there is second-hand, rescued from trash bins, DIY'd, or just all of those combined. And our tent has been in need of repair for a while now. Some stitching has been disintegrating a little bit, and this corner ripped open completely when we put tension on these storm bands at the start of the season. The rubber and tent canvas were still intact, so I decided to redo the stitching by hand, following the original holes, which was basically just going in and out of the tent over and over again. In the end, I raised the pole back to its original height again and reattached the storm band to the top of the pole, which was a quick DIY fix that turned out to be quite a solid fix. So we decided to keep that to reduce the tension on that newly fixed seam. I have pieced my neckband together. I tried to pattern match the checkers as well as possible without losing any length. So I had to add a couple of seams. So I'm gonna press these open and then apply my interfacing over the pressed seam. So let's go ahead and do that. This is my final neckband piece and then this is my facing piece. I also had to do some piecing here. And now we can sew them along the long edge and the short edges. And then I'll be attaching it to my shirt. It is day 11. Let me show you where we're at. Yesterday I already pinned the button facing in place all the way around. Picked out 3 random miscellaneous buttons from my button stash. I think I'm gonna attach the button placket by hand because I quite like doing this without any visible stitching. Put this aside and then let's have a look at these. These are my partner's Levi's jeans, and as you can see, there is quite a big hole here at the knees. I'm just gonna do a standard denim repair, reinforcing it from the inside and then darning it closed with hopefully a right matching color thread. I need to open up one of these seams. I'm gonna go for the side seam because I don't need to top stitch here. This is gonna be very easy to close. Open this up probably from here to here, some space to work with, and then we'll go from there. All right, there we go. So that should give me enough space to work with this area without touching the other side. The interfacing is applied. You can either use a darning foot here, and you may be able to turn the feed dogs off so that you can do like free motion darning. I am just gonna get started like this with feed dogs with the normal presser foot, and let's go. I will also show you what it looks like if I turn the feed dogs off and if I put the darning foot in here. And that's that. Darned. This is what the knee looks like on the outside and on the inside. I'm now going to close up the side seams again, and then we are done. I spent about 45 minutes on this repair, and that is including the time I spent filming and explaining some of the steps. Way faster than I expected. This 30-day challenge may not have been about speed, but it still felt like a great win, because I had been procrastinating this repair for months. So being able to check off a project from the mending waitlist felt great. I spent my remaining 15 minutes of that day hand sewing on the couch, securing the buttonhole placket of the checkered top, which obviously took longer than the 15 minutes I had left. But another rule I set, in the spirit of slow and intentional sewing, I was allowed to go overtime when sewing by hand. Had I done this step of securing the button placket by machine, I would have easily been able to do so within those 15 minutes. But I felt like doing it by hand, so instead of rushing through, I enjoyed the process during golden hour on my couch. So why did I mention earlier on that I wanted to treat the 1 hour a day as a minimum and a maximum? That's because I also wanted to use this month to challenge myself a bit with working in time blocks. I tend to have this all or nothing work mentality, where I lock into hyper-focus mode for hours at a time. Getting lost in the flow like that is amazing at times for creativity or when you really need to get stuff done. But for me personally, it sometimes also feels like a curse. I start forgetting to take breaks, eat, or remember to do other urgent tasks that needed attention that day. So this month I wanted to try splitting my days into smaller time blocks every now and then, instead of always spending an entire day on one type of task. I get more comfortable with setting myself a timer to get a better idea of how long certain tasks take, how much sewing I can get done in an hour, and just how I can make the most out of these 1 hour blocks during a day. So also no 7 hours a day to do an entire week in one go. That's my default rhythm, which I tried to avoid this month. So did I manage to stick to my 1 hour limit all month? Mostly. Ignore day 12, because I spent my Thursday that week in Leiden to help my friend Grace from Gracomakes with some photography for her new website. And I didn't end up doing my 1 hour of sewing that day. Today's victim is a repair. There are a couple of things that need fixing. This is the cuff, and you can see this like white edge appearing. Fabric has completely worn out. One of the sleeves is completely through. And then there's one more thing, which is the color. It's really starting to fade there along that fold line. We decided to leave this for now. I'm probably gonna just wait until that gets worse and then replace it. Here I'm explaining my thought process of how I would have replaced the upper collar if I would have fixed it in this video. Which again, I didn't, so I'll spare you all of that yapping. But I did end up filming all of the steps of this repair in detail, including some general tips for deconstructing and reconstructing garments, so I might turn that into a separate video of its own. Let me know if that would be something you're interested in. For this video, I'll stick to a high-level overview of the steps. On this first day, on Friday, all I ended up doing was seam ripping, yapping about construction details, and continuing seam ripping. The next day, used the fabric of the inner cuff to create an elbow patch, reinforced with interfacing and a ton of stitching. Didn't realize I was out of focus the entire time here, but here's my stitched up elbow patch in focus. Freestyled an oval shape and turned the edge in all around. More interfacing, this time to stabilize the sleeve itself while darning the hole closed before I would add the patch. Used the trusty ruler trick to pin the patch onto my sleeve, then moved on to the cuffs. Cut out 2 new inner cuff pieces using a black cotton remnant from my fabric stash. Another day later, time to finish those cuffs. Eased in the excess of cutting them slightly smaller to account for the turn of cloth, stitched right on the other side of the worn out edge so it's completely hidden inside the new seam allowance. Added new buttonholes, basted the cuff in place before top stitching it to the sleeve, and added the buttons again. On Monday the 16th, so at the start of week 3, I finished it by securing the elbow patches by hand. Not my neatest hand sewing work, but it's not too bad, and I'm happy with the result. And so is my partner, one of his oldest shirts back in the game. On this day, I also cut out this fabric that you could already see me ironing after pre-washing recently. A gorgeous cotton by Marimekko with their classic Unico print. I cut out the zero waist workwear jacket. Another pattern by Birgitta Helmersson that I've been wanting to make for ages. Finished fabric and a pattern by a Swedish designer. Sounds like I'll be making myself a very Scandinavian jacket. Next project from the abandoned projects pile. This is the Crosstown Crescent bag by one of my good friends, Gracomakes. I cut this out, I think, pretty much a year ago. I was trying to sew this up with a bunch of other things right before a trip to New York City. At one point I realized, what the fuck am I doing? This bag can wait. And here we are today, a year later. The zipper was already attached to one side of the bag, but I think I used the wrong seam allowance. Also took out the zipper from the inner pocket. It's really nice to open, but to close it, it's very hard. So this one is going back in the pile of other zippers, and let's have a look what we can put in here. Blind zip, that's not gonna go. I think I'm gonna go for brown. I don't think I'm gonna be using these brown ones for anything else. White ones are really easy to pair. Yeah, brown it is. It is Wednesday today, the 18th of June, and this is where I'm at with the Crescent bag. I have just finished binding both of the edges, as you can see here. I also made myself a fresh cup of coffee, and we are exactly half an hour in. So now the next step is going to be top stitching from the right side. So I want my top thread to be white again. But I'm going to leave my bobbin thread orange because that line is going to be catching the binding over here. Zoom in a bit. So I just did all the top stitching. The last thing left to do is inserting the straps and then top stitching this bit. I have a bunch of like webbing scraps and leftovers. And if I just connect a couple of these shorter ones, then that might be perfect to use up these shorter ones. Gonna like butt them up right against each other, take a tiny little piece of scrap fabric, something really thin. Maybe I'll even use this last little remnant of binding. And then our bag was done. Self fabric strap that is top stitched, has some webbing on the inside, and the seam is also rolled towards the inside. Zipper here, and on the inside it looks like this. We have a small pocket right over here with a white lining. Then on the inside we have the orange binding on the seams. I didn't have any fabric left other than this, and this was the perfect strap length for me. If I would have made it adjustable with a slider, I would have lost some length. So I decided to just go for a fixed length, and it works well. Happy with the result, and it adds a nice pop of color, especially in outfits with lots of solid colors. But now that Grace has also added a new smaller version of the Crescent bag last month, that is what all those new photos were for, I feel like the tiny one might even be a better size for my needs. So maybe a smaller one next? On Thursday, I started with a quick clean of my overlocker and then threaded it in black so I could tackle 2 knit projects. First off, a self-drafted and half-finished tank in a green rip. Another one that I started probably more than a year ago. It's hard to see on camera, but the side that I initially used as the inside looked slightly better to me than the outside. So I decided to unpick the current seams and start over. I forgot to test the tension, and it was off. So back to my good friend, the seam ripper, and with that, my 1 hour of that day was already over. Time to stop. Is how far I got today. Those 3 overlocks. Then I also top stitched the neckline. Also added the button facings. Used double-sided interfacing. I wasn't really thinking. It doesn't like remove the stretch. So for that reason, this is gonna be my button side. And this is gonna be the buttonhole side, because on this side I interfaced with some pretty heavy stuff, which completely removed all the stretch. That will definitely help if I'm gonna add buttonholes in here later. And I did the hem over here with the twin needle. Just folded it over by 2 centimeters and then top stitch it with the twin needle. I'll be back tomorrow. Doei! This is where I'm leaving off for today. All that's left to do is attach the second side of the binding. And I think I'm gonna do this by hand. I kind of regretted not adding back neck tape right away. So I think I'm just gonna fake it like this. Just add it by hand. And then I also took the neckband off of this blue top. Okay, let's take a step back there. I made this as a wearable toile of the Claudia tank by Just Patterns. Quite a long time ago already. But the neck didn't really get that wearable memo. Well, I just really messed up sewing the neck trim and couldn't be bothered to fix it right away. The front isn't awful, but it also doesn't really look good. But then when you look at the back, it's a disaster. Yeah, I think it's time to finally redo this neckline. Tomorrow or another day, whenever I will continue with these 2 projects, because the hour is over. Hello, hello. I'm back. It is the 21st of June. I already did some sewing today. I did the neck tape and I did the second part of the armholes by hand. And then I had a look at my buttons. I really like these, but there's only 4. Again, only 3 and they're quite big. And then I saw these, and I have tons of these. Why not? I want to use what I have, so I'm gonna go for these. And if I'm gonna be making buttonholes, let's tackle these right away, and then I can do all of the buttons by hand later this week. Then this one, I think it was yesterday that I took off the neck binding. So for this one, just need to reattach my neck binding. Let's see if I can get all 3 done in an hour. I still have green thread on my machine, so I'm gonna start with this one and then I'm gonna rethread it to white for the white buttonholes. And this one's gonna be with the overlocker, which is still threaded in black. That came out pretty. Okay, let's repeat that 6 more times. How fun. Added my 3 buttonholes to this shirt as well. Gotta tuck away all the buttonhole threads, attach all of these buttons, which I'm all gonna do by hand. So I'm gonna do that another time. And I have 20 minutes left of my hour to tackle this friend over here. That should be feasible. So if we take 0.5 centimeter seam allowance, 16.25, 12.75, I don't know why I didn't include any negative e's. Why did I think that was gonna work? I'm very confused. Maybe I mismeasured this somehow. I don't know. Anyways. On Sunday, I tried it on to review the fit. Still not my cleanest neckline, but it's fine for now. But I'm not completely sold on the final result yet. I really don't like the side view, for example, because the shoulder pads are very easily visible. I've seen some photos of others who made this and loved the fit on them, but my fabric and shoulder pads were clearly not a good match. But it's okay. I saw this as more of a wearable toile and not a final finished garment, and I suppose I can reuse most of the fabric. I used my 1 hour of sewing that Sunday on this pair of pajama shorts and pants. I got both of these back in February this year, but never ended up sitting down yet to actually sew them, even though they're so quick to make. So I made a good start on Sunday and continued early the next morning. Finished both the day after, top stitching, ties, and I hemmed the full length pair. I added 2 buttonholes to the inside of the hem of the long pair as well, just so I have the option to cinch them if I want to on cold winter days. They're both based on the Mila pants pattern by Michelle Design Company, but I changed the standard inseam pockets to slash pockets. On Wednesday I only did hand sewing, which I didn't end up filming. I finished the checker top as well as the green rib tank top by adding the buttons and tucking all loose threads away. And I won't edit in any clips to make it seem like I did any sewing on Thursday, because in reality I didn't. And no valid reason for skipping the day. I completely forgot about it until it was too late to start. Oh well. So on Friday evening, it was sewing time, and I took the liberty to not set a timer. I figured it was finally time to cut those fabrics I had already pre-washed earlier during the month. I cut out the remaining pieces I needed for the Marimekko Zero Waste Workwear jacket. That was a mouthful. I decided to add a lining to that jacket, and these are the pieces I'll be using for that. And after finishing the Townsend shirt for my mom at the start of the month, I now also finally cut out one for myself in this bright green paper touch cotton poplin. Lastly, I cut out a quick basic camisole in a nice and compressive navy double knit. Saturday morning, I cut out one more thing. These simple pieces to add a basic shelf bra to my knit top I finished the week before. It's fully double layered, serged together, backed out the lining and gave it a good press. And when we were at the campsite later that day, I sewed in some small press buttons by hand. This way I can attach them for wearing, but also detach them to wash them separately. The day after was not really a 1 hour of sewing kind of day. I spent my entire Sunday sewing. I made a new sample of a zero waste pattern I've slowly been developing over the past years. I tested some small tweaks and variations in construction methods and ended up with a semi-wearable toile. A few more tweaks to go. And the very last day of June was a Monday. I didn't end up filming anything, but I spent my hour of sewing that day adjusting the shelf bra I added to the knit top over the weekend. After a bit of wear testing, I realized I needed more vertical length above the elastic. So I removed the elastic from the main body and just added it as a separate waistband right below. The fit is much better now and I'm really happy with it. It works great. And that was the entire month. I feel like this video has already gotten way too long, so I'll try to keep it short, but I do have some fun stats and conclusions. First off, total time spent. I made a rough calculation of the actual time I spent sewing, which I think will be around 30 hours if I exclude the time that I spent hand sewing. Including hand sewing time, maybe around 38? Considering I missed a few days, but also didn't want to add all those missed hours in bulk onto the next days, I'm pretty happy with these totals. Pretty spot on to me. Another fun total. How many projects? I worked on 18 different projects and never in a consecutive order. I checked and I switched back and forth between projects a total of 30 times. Welcome to my chaotic brain. Okay, back to those projects. Of those 18 projects, 11 were sewing projects that I finished, 3 were repairs and mending projects that I completed, another 3 were sewing projects that I cut out, and the last one was my big fresh laundry needing to be ironed pile that also deserves to be counted in this list. Took a lot of time. And the projects I didn't tackle this month, I'll probably be tackling those in future episodes of my Unfinished Sewing Business series on Instagram. So did I learn anything? Will this become a new habit? Some days I really enjoyed the 1 hour time blocks and felt really satisfied just spending 1 hour and then leaving the rest for another day. Sometimes just doing a bunch of preparation steps on one day, like setting up my machines with the right color of thread or applying all of the interfacing, things like that, to set myself up for immediate sewing the day after. But on other days, I really wanted to continue and finish it, or at least the specific step I was working on that day. It also made a big difference if I was filming all the steps for this video or not. 1 hour was really short if I was also trying to film everything, so in the last week I ignored the camera for a few days to get things done. So sewing in strict 1 hour time blocks will probably only work well for me when I'm sewing for myself and not filming every step for socials. I definitely prefer to work in longer time blocks when I'm filming lots of detail or elaborate tutorials. And my goal? That creative flow is for sure starting to come back, and I definitely have even more ideas floating around in my head at the moment that will never stop. Also managed to move some permanent residence of my work in progress projects and mending pile back to the wardrobe, and I definitely enjoyed the process.